Hello, welcome back to the ULTRASCAPE podcast. We're back. It's the first episode of 2026, and as always, I'm joined by Becky Waters. Becky, how are you? And more importantly, where are you?
Where am I? I'm currently in a little village near Åre. I think that's how you say it, in Sweden. I am working on a sled dog kennel for the next couple of months. I brought my dog. I drove up last week and will be here for the next few months. Hopefully learn to do a bit of skiing and get to know the dogs and a little bit more about winter environments.
Excellent. That'd be useful when we get to our Iditarod coverage. And if anyone wondered why Becky knows a hell of a lot about the Iditarod, it's not because of the bike race, I can assure you. It's because of the sled dog race. But anyway, that's enough gossip for now, although we'll get on to some good gossip later on in the podcast. Before we get any further, we need to thank our sponsor, Redshift. They were our title sponsor last year and they're continuing again for this year. So a big thank you to Redshift. You may know already, you probably do if you've listened to the podcast, they make some excellent products. And they've got some great stuff coming up this year. So they're going to have a few more interesting handlebar type products. I won't say too much more. And some other really cool little things to make your bike more comfortable. So I'm looking forward to hopefully giving a bit of an exclusive on those when they're available. But in the meantime, we still have our discount code. So have a look at the link in the description or up on the screen. And thanks just to Redshift.
Our two bits of news today are both about Lost Dot events. The first one is the Lost Dot 101, which is their first Flinter race. So that's for women, non-binary and trans riders. They've reopened applications and they will stay open until the end of January. So if anyone's tempted, they can apply to that. That's 1,200 kilometer race in the middle of May. And they said in their post that about 50% of the women on the start, or the Flinter riders, on the start list now are newbies. So it would be an excellent event for anyone who's never raced before.
Do you know how many riders are taking on? How many applicants?
I don't actually. No. They've reopened them because a couple of people have pulled out, but I'm not sure what their target number is.
Maybe
101, I
101.
assume.
Yeah. Maybe we've answered our own question there. That's a good target. I mean, they're aiming for 100 riders in TCR and getting close. There we go. Well, we've decided anyway, it's 101. So if you're listening, we'll start.
There's the coordinate. And the other bit of news is about the Trans-Pyrenees race from Lost Dot, that they are going back to the road primarily, because last year there was a mandatory gravel parkour, which won't be included this year, now that we are 2026.
It was a hike.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of hiking.
A bit faster and a bit more predictable in timings, which I think will help a lot of people hit the timing cutoffs, which I know was a bit of a friction point last year. A lot of people missed cutoffs.
Yeah, there's a few issues.
Control points in the finish.
And I think there was a lot of carbon-soled cycling shoes that got destroyed on a certain Via Ferrata path, which is excellent to watch, but probably not so good when you're you find yourself hiking up a stone path. Elsewhere, we mentioned, I think we mentioned in the last episode, Adrian Lichty, he is on his way on the Africa end-to-end record. So he started a couple of weeks ago. And so he started in Algeria, which are the northernmost point of the African continent, and he's heading all the way down to the southernmost point in South Africa. So if any of you watched Russ Cook run that route last year, he went the opposite way. He started in South Africa and finished in Algeria. And there's a really good YouTube series that he put together, which will give you some idea of what Adrian's doing, and he's doing a fairly similar route. But so far, he's at around kilometre 4,000 as we're talking. So he's crossing the Sahara. He's been through Algeria, which didn't look like it was easy. Algeria's got you need quite a lot of permissions. So I think he had a few issues with the police and they wanted to escort him for certain areas. So I think he had to change his route to make it easier for them. And then there's some pretty bad weather too. Lots of heavy rain in Algeria, which made life quite difficult. And then he headed into Morocco. However, the border between Algeria and Morocco is actually closed. So he ended up getting a ferry to Spain and then back to Morocco, to Melilla, which is actually where I was a few weeks back. And so he could therefore bypass the closed border. And then on his way, in familiar ground for him, through Morocco. And then he's crossed the Sahara. He's about to head into Mauritania, and he's just crossed the Tropic of Cancer. And it looks like at the moment he's got some pretty amazing tailwinds. Keep an eye on his Instagram as well. There's some really good stories he puts up, and that's going to be a really cool journey to follow, I think. Elsewhere, we alluded to the fact there's quite a lot of events starting in the next couple of weeks. The first one is the Grand Guanche Audex, a very popular event. Obviously, there's the roads, the gravel, and the trail events that we mentioned in the podcast. So this Sunday, the 25th of January, the Grand Guanche Audex road starts, and I'll be there, which will be nice. So I'm hoping for some sunshine. I do have brand new white shoes and socks though, so apologies in advance if that makes it rain.
Much further away, on the other side of the continent, arguably, is the Tour Te Waipounamu in New Zealand. So that is the length of the southern island. It started in 2020, and it doesn't run every year. It takes a couple of years off, so it hasn't ran since 2024. That starts on Sunday, and that
seems to be quite a theme actually with the New Zealand events. They tend to do alternate years rather than do it every single year, which is quite good.
Yeah, I know with this event, Brian likes to have a year off because in New Zealand, it's really hard to make a commercial race for liability and legal reasons. So it's just nice for an organizer who's not making money from it to not have to do it every year. But what's really interesting about the Tour Te Waipounamu is Brian's organized access into private land over what they call, I think, the high stations, which to us is like a ranch. And it just also gives the landowners a break from having the bikepackers come through. And I think this is the only race you can do in the grander part. You can't go and do an FKT on it because it's on private land. Riders have only got access during that event.
Yeah, it's quite unique, really.
It's 1,350 kilometers. Everyone's on a mountain bike, and the terrain varies wildly from tarmac road up to hiking trails up in the high country. So there's a proper amount of hiker bike there. It's very similar to the Highland Trail. Brian Alder, who's the organizer, is a multi-time veteran of the Highland Trail. And one of the notable things about this is, as you would expect in New Zealand's South Island, the weather is extremely changeable and the storms come in quite quickly. It's a narrow island surrounded by ocean, so there's not a lot of warning that the heavens are about to open.
Yeah, well, they've just had actually some quite heavy rain in the North Island as well, haven't they? There's been some big landslides and stuff. Yeah, I've been to a couple of times to New Zealand, and it's the one place that I've been and you just feel like you're such a long way from home and just sat out in the middle of ocean and really exposed. It's a hell of a long way, but a spectacular country. So I'm sure that's a pretty amazing route.
Former winner Lewis Siddle described it as much a single discipline adventure race as a bikepacking event, which should hopefully hint at how physical an event it is and how mountainous it is. There's a couple of foreign racers who'll be there, which is quite exciting. The race has attracted a few foreigners over the years. It's always been one of the biggest Kiwi races, but it's pulled in a few Europeans whose names will be familiar to everyone listening. Justinas is probably the most popular name there, and it will be interesting to see how he gets on such a rough race as he's now an Arizona trail veteran. This shouldn't be too much hiking compared to the Grand Canyon. Another rider is Angus Young, and I think you're a bit more familiar with Angus than I am, Josh.
Yeah, I've raced him quite a lot over the years, actually. I mean, he's a phenomenal rider. Like, he's probably world class in terms of, all those kind of metrics, power numbers and all that stuff. And he's held the record. I think has he got the current record on the Highland Trail, the FKT? I think he might do. I can't remember if it was broken or not. So yeah, he's actually taken a year or 2 years off. He was a teacher. So all of those achievements he's had before of being while he's holding down a full-time job. So he's basically traveling, and his name's going to crop up quite a few times, I suspect, in our kind of run through of events in this podcast. So yeah, he's just spent the winter in South America traveling at high altitude. So he's got lots of miles in his legs. So it'd be interesting to see if he can step it up a level now that he's basically not working full time and is a full-time smelly bikepacker.
The commentary on Dot Watcher was quite interesting. There's one of the race veterans has written a preview for us, and he pointed out that Angus Young's marathon time is 2 hours, 20 minutes, which was just a reminder of how quick he is.
Angus is probably a better runner than cyclist, to be fair. He's just an absolute athlete.
What's he doing in bikepacking? Isn't he also a skier?
He can cross-country ski as well. Yeah, just one of those good all-round guys that, really good at sports. The kid at school that just probably annoyed you in PE because he was good at everything. It's probably Angus.
Yeah. Another fast rider is Joe Nation. He won in the last edition in 2024. It was also the same year that he won Silk Road in 2024. So he'll be excited to race against Justinas and Angus and try and defend his win against the Europeans.
And he used to be a professional enduro racer too. So he's very fast on the trails, very fast.
Another Kiwi rider is Rufus Wenlock. And this is interesting with Joe and Rufus because they are, I think, they're friends foremost, but they are competitors second. So Rufus has come second to Joe in the 2024 Tour to Waipanamu, who was third at Silk Road in 24 when Joe won. And they designed their own challenge together called the Double Shake, where they rode the length of New Zealand, that's the North and South Island, but they started at opposite points, which was really interesting to watch because they're doing exactly the same distance and elevation, but in very different ways at different times, at different weather conditions. And I think that was actually quite decisive in the end as to why.
I think it was a wind, wasn't it? Like the Wellington or the south of the North Island is a particularly windy area. If you watch Justinus's stories and Sami Sarri's stories from a few days ago, it looked very, very windy. And I think basically Rufus ended up with massive headwinds and Joe got the tailwinds. So, but yeah, interestingly, Rufus as well. He's a frame builder. So his brand is Surfer Cycles. I'm not sure if they're available yet, but he's been racing them for a couple of years, and he's running a 32-inch wheel size bike prototype for this event, which would be interesting. If you follow kind of the cycling technical gossip, there's going to be a new wheel size at some point. It's gaining traction. That's probably quite literally with 32-inch wheels. But it makes a lot of sense for these kind of ultra endurance races, especially for something like, for example, Tour Divide or maybe even Silk Road, where you're running on a lot of corrugated roads because the wheels roll over the bumps better. Yeah, be interesting to keep an eye on.
Another name that popped out was Martin Strelka. He was fifth in the inaugural Tour to Waipanamu in 2021, but he hasn't done much since. So I really have no idea how well he'll go. But for these three riders, Martin, Joe and Rufus, they're local riders, all of whom have done the race at least once before. So they have a really good idea of where they can make up time. And I think that's quite key on a very technical, low resupply type route like that.
Definitely.
In the women's race, there's Emma Baitup. She's a two-time defending first woman, and she also won, or she was first woman at the Highland Trail last year. And talking about locals who know where they can make up time, she reckons she can take 12 hours off her 2024 time. It's just whether that time beats the other women. That would be the question. I'd say the next favourite is probably Sami Sauri. She's having a bit of a moment right now. She was second woman at Silk Road last August, which was her standout result to date, and then she was first woman across Andes in November last year. So if she's carried that form, she should go really well here. Another rider is Megan Young, who's Angus's partner, and I think they often train together, which I found quite interesting. And they've done Dells Divide and Atlas Mountain as a pair before, but this will only be the second time that she's raced solo, I believe. So yeah, a bit of an underdog to an extent, but will be really exciting to watch.
But also been travelling with Angus in South America, so they've both done a lot of cycling over the last months, which makes a difference. Cycling form, always useful in a bike race.
I was publishing the bikes of Tour to Waipanamu on Dot Watcher last night, and it caught my eye how unique all the bikes are. There's a lot of homemade bags, things like padded, what do you call them? Padding that you put on your down tube because you know you're going to hike it. Quite a few harnesses. Yeah. So I found it really resourceful and lots of personalised setups, which I thought was really interesting. I mentioned to Josh before the podcast, actually, my favourite was one of the riders has a frame bag that they made in collaboration with their mum. So I thought, which is unusual.
Yeah, I think Kiwis are just very resourceful generally as a population. Having spent a lot of time out there, they just get on with stuff and they just don't mess around. And if something needs making or fixing, they just do it. So yeah, it'd be good to watch that race. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that one kind of shakes out. Further north now, in Morocco. So it's the Atlas Mountain race, one of our favourites. We've both done it a couple of times or been there. So that starts in about 10 days or so, just over 2 weeks, 6th of February. So it's an evening start and it's 1,350 kilometres. But there's been a bit of a change this year. So it starts in Beni Mellal as opposed to Marrakesh. So the first couple of 100k or so, I think it's 300k, are going to be slightly different to previous years. However, it means the Marrakesh start normally has about 50k of basically flat tarmac, which means everyone's together in a massive group and it gets a little bit mental, to be honest, and everyone always goes out really, really hard. This year it's starting straight up a massive mountain. So that could spread things out a bit easier, a bit earlier, and make things settle people in their groups a bit earlier on and make things a little bit less frantic. However, it's a Nelson race. There's always a catch, isn't there? So there's 14 kilometres along a canyon. However, part of that is through a river, which you've got to hike your bike. Riders are going to get wet feet on the first night and then go up to about 2,000 metres. Yeah, there could be some cold feet. You can't really mess around in Morocco. I think a lot of riders get caught out because they see the lovely photos. Well, you see behind me, blue skies, lovely desert views. But what isn't pictured is the fact that it quite often does rain in those mountains. It can be very hard. Can be hard up high and cold up high. Out of the 3 editions I've done, 2 years there was flash flooding. In 1 year there was snow on the highest parts. There's always something there, and then it's going to be too hot, too dry, and you're going to eat bread and omelets for the best part of a week. So it's a very attritional race, and I think it always throws up quite a few surprises, and there's always a very strong field. So Becky, do you want to run us through the women's field? Because actually it's looking quite strong, isn't it?
Yeah, so Cynthia Carson's lining up. She's the first name we've picked out. She is doing all 4 of Nelson's races, as he's adding Taurus to the end of the calendar. And I forget what the name for doing this is a full Nelson, isn't it? Where you do all 4.
I think there's various names, but we'll call it the full Nelson.
Full Nelson. And then Helen Fromenti, who did you race against her earlier last year?
I rode with her in Kyrgyzstan. We were touring before the Silk Road race, and she finished that with her partner Stefan. So yeah, they finished in. I can't remember what their position was. Maybe they were the first pair in Kyrgyzstan, and then she did quite a strong result at Trans-Pyrenees, if I remember correctly. So yeah, she's experienced in these kind of these kind of harsher, low resupply kind of environments. So it'd be interesting to see how she goes.
And then a somewhat unknown is Kerry McPhee. She's lined up at the Highland Trail twice. She was 6th the first time, but she scratched last year due to losing her bike on a river crossing. So hopefully she doesn't repeat that at the canyon. Kerry McPhee's a well-known Scottish rider, and she's super fast, but is still relatively new to bikepacking. But her most recent result is she was first woman at Strathpuffer, which, Josh, have you done Strathpuffer?
No, I never have. I've obviously been through a number of times on GB Duro, and the Highland Trail goes through Strathpuffer Forest. Strathpeffer Forest, actually, it should be. The Puffer's the name of the race. But I've never done the race, and I probably should do it at some point, to be honest. I like to try and find something warm and sunny in January, though, not cold, which I'm failing at this point.
Well, cold it is, because it's a 24-hour mountain bike race around the Scottish Highlands, and it's typically snowy, lots of studded tyres, lots of, I think people bring mini log burners, they've got teas, they've got hot custard. It's a properly cold race. So
it's either cold or wet, or both. Snowy or wet, or definitely cold, regardless.
And then the next woman, I think you've pulled this name out, and you've left it to me to pronounce it, Justina Yapsov?
Yeah, she's a Polish rider. She's not been bikepacking that long, but she had a strong ride at the Bright Midnight last year in Norway. So yeah, she's a strong rider, but I think this is probably like the same is true for for Kerry as for Kerry, and a lot of riders, a lot of the men's field as well, which we'll come on to a second. Is that I think Atlas is quite a unique race in that there's a lot of elements to it, which kind of mean you have to really look after yourself. And we quite often see it's very attritional. We see a lot of riders go out hard and scratch. So I think it's a difficult race to get right at first attempt, just because of there's some quite unique circumstances around it. And I know that, from personal experience, I was a mess the first year I did it. So I do think it probably favours a bit of experience. And that's why, for me, Cynthia is probably one to beat, because she was actually the fastest woman in 2024, I think it was. And I think she was top 15 overall as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And I think that probably leads on to the men's race too, because there's some strong riders there. So a couple of standout names, Sed Brewer. So he's been in that exact scenario I've just described. He's been up there like in the top 3 leading. I think he scratched from the lead one year. He's never quite sort of got it together for Atlas. But I suspect he's got that experience. He's world class. He's won like the European cross country mountain bike championships in the past. He's world class. So if he can hold it together, he's going to be hard to beat. But it's not always about pedaling. And there's a lot of elements here which could cause him to come unstuck. Another strong name, Victor Bozzoni, obviously the winner of the Transcontinental race last year. He's going for a bit more of an off-road season in terms of racing. And again, he's definitely strong enough to win it. but it's all the other elements. So I think for me, I think it's going to be really, really interesting to watch. But I think it might be a bit of a learning curve for him. But he may prove me wrong. And also, if you check out his Instagram at the moment, he did a bit of a blurred out photo of his new Factor mountain bike, like a bit of a sneak peek. Someone AI'd it and made it into a camel. So that's quite amusing. If you want to laugh, check out his Instagram. I knew you'd find that funny, Becky. Another name that I've picked out, again, I think probably sits under the same kind of banner as Victor, is Chris Millman. Probably a name that not many people have heard of, but he's a US rider. He's just moved over to Girona, and he's sort of making a go of going sort of full time at riding. But he was third behind Seb and Victor at the Tracker 560 last year, and has had some pretty strong results in some of those more kind of short ultras, long gravel races. So I suspect we could see something like Seb, Victor, and Chris, and probably a couple of others who we've not even mentioned, who were just the people always come out the woodwork for this race, absolutely destroying themselves early on, and then I suspect one of the three will probably end up scratching or having serious issues. And I think people who maybe kind of put out a more consistent effort will come through stronger. And a name that really stands out to me is Thomas Beret. And so he's already been third. He was fifth last year, I think. I've raced him a couple of times. Well, every time I've done it, 3 times, he's been there. He's very determined. He trains really well, and he's experienced. So I won't be surprised if he's not right up there early on, but he normally comes through strong. So keep an eye on Thomas. He's my kind of bet for a podium. And then a couple of other names. Floris Barat, actually raced him in Hellenic last year. So he was third at Hellenic. So he's not done Atlas before, but again, here's a name that could crop up. He used to be an Olympic kayaker. He went to the Beijing Olympics.
He doesn't need that down the canyon.
He'll feel at home to start with, but he's just a strong athlete. He's a doctor now, and he's telling me that he does his night shifts, and then to train for ultracycling, he just go training the next day without sleeping, which makes a lot of sense, really, doesn't it?
No.
And then, well, it doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense for this stupid sport we do. And then Andrew Phillips, we'll give him a shout out because he's the director or one of the organisers of the TCR and the Lost Dot events. He's done it a couple of times, but I don't think he's fully got it together and got a clean run on the Atlas. But again, experience counts, and he's travelling in Morocco at the moment. And another name, well, Vincent Chenge from Kenya, who we mentioned a couple of episodes ago. So he's coming up from Kenya. Again, super strong, but just sort of piecing everything together for Atlas, being his first time, will be the challenge for him. And another name, Juan Antonio Fletcher, won a stage of the Tour de France, ex-pro. Pundit on Eurosport. He was actually at the finish last year, and I think he's got inspired to give it a go. So I think this is his first proper mountain bike or off-road event. So again, it'd be really great to see how he gets on.
He's done a lot of the gravel ones in Spain, hasn't he? Like Badlands.
Yeah, he was at the track last year and things like that. And I think he's done Trans-Iberica a couple of times. So yeah, I mean, that's Atlas, isn't it? It's like there's all these strong people, and I think that's why it makes it so competitive, because everyone goes out really hard. There's some really strong engines. And then it's like, what happens? Who falls apart first? Who can't hack omelettes for every meal and dry bread and being too hot and too cold and dehydrated? So it's always fascinating. Yeah, definitely one to watch. I'll be doing my daily coverage on YouTube. So yeah, that's starting soon. We've also got a pretty cool pair as well, haven't we, Becky?
Yeah, so one of the pairs that I've picked out is Rebecca Rush and Greg Martin. I believe Greg is her partner, but we're not here to talk about him. Rebecca Rush is, which I was looking at her profile in bikepacking, and I think she is better known as a gravel racer because she's done things like the Iditarod Trail Invitational a couple of times, and I think she's done the Arizona or one of the other trail races. But she is very well known at races like Unbound and the other kind of US gravel or mountain bike.
Yeah, and mountain bike races, I think, as well.
But she's one of the kind of founding godmothers. Well, as someone who came to the sport relatively new, I think of her as one of the founding godmothers of long distance and self-supported riding. So it's really exciting to see her in Morocco lining up in a pair. Yeah, we'll just see how she goes.
Yeah, it's going to be a good watch, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah. Again, there's so many races at the same time, all in fairly sunny places. The race around Rwanda. So that's, well, says it all really. It starts and finishes in Kigali in Rwanda. how long is it? About 1,000k or so, is it? 1,200k. I've done it a couple of times, so I can't remember how far it is. The land of 1,000 hills, clues in the name. It's quite hilly / mountainous. You get up to just under 4,000 meters at the highest point. There's quite a lot of time above 2,000 meters. So again, there's some different challenges with the altitude, the heat, the humidity. I've been there and it's just rained non-stop as well. And when it rains, it can get muddy. So yeah, a challenging race. And again, we've got some interesting riders lining up for that. So who we got, Becky?
First name on our list is Dricus Coetzee, who I keep passing them back to you, Josh, but you've raced against him at Atlas, no?
I've been in the same race as him. I wouldn't say I raced against him. But yeah, Dricus is super strong, ex-pro triathlete. I think he basically rides full time, and he's from Namibia. So I first met him at the Rhino Run, and then he famously was pushing Justinus really hard in the Atlas Mountain race, but scratched with about 20k to go. He basically totally destroyed himself. That's quite good for me. I mean, I was a place higher, but yeah, is really strong. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes in Rwanda. I'm sure he'll do a really strong ride, and he lives at altitude as well in Namibia, so that shouldn't affect him too much.
The next name is Christian Auriemma. He's an Italian guy who's often placed well in the top 5 at races like Two Volcano Sprint and across Andes. And he has raced around Rwanda once before, but he scratched it, and that was in 2024. So I suspect he'll be back with a vengeance. I saw him at Across Andes, and I think he might be the most how do I say, like the most elegant bike packer. He just didn't look like he'd done 4 days on a bike. He didn't look grubby at all. I think he must have still been cleanly shaven. I bet he had a razor with him. He was just so well put together.
It reminds me of Christoph Allerga doing TCR, and he'd have a shave every morning.
Exactly. The next name is one that a couple of people might not know from a racing perspective. Is Finley Newark or Newark? He's a London. He's a Londoner who's much better known for his skills behind a camera. He did race quite seriously in his teens, and I think there was chance of or hope of him making it as professional, but he decided to step away and is now more on the creative side of the tracks. But he's on the pedals this time, and we'll see how he goes. He was one of the videographers at Silk Road last year, so he knows exactly what this entails.
And he spends a lot of time in Africa as well. A lot of time with in Kenya with Team Armani, and he's talented. He's a really strong cyclist. But yeah, it'd be interesting. Again, just putting all the pieces together, and he'll have the engine for sure. It's a case of dealing with everything else, which is quite often one of the unique challenges in bikepacking. But yeah, it'd be good to see how Finley gets on, and if anything, he might make some nice videos out of it.
The only woman's name that I've picked out is Hannah Ghazi Idrisi. She'll be very well known to people who followed European races like the Unknown Race and Three Peaks Bike Race over the past couple of years. And she's finished a lot of European road races, but not so many off-road races. So this is a foray into the off-road and outside of Europe. So we'll see how she goes. She's done very well. She's plenty experienced enough, but is somewhat an uncertainty.
The great thing about the race around Rwanda as well is that it's a great opportunity for the Rwandans, the local riders, to take part. They don't get many opportunities. It's not really that feasible for them to travel to Europe. There's visa issues and the cost, and they don't have that much in the way of disposable income. So it's always a big opportunity for them. And there's a couple of riders. I know these guys. I've actually raced in a pair with Jean Rubrera. He just takes part every year. It depends how much he's been partying, to be fair. Sometimes he can get top 10. He's been 8th. He's been between 8th and 24th in most of the editions. And Eric for destroying your surname, Nuduano, he's never quite gotten to the top 15, but again, really nice guy. Spent a bit of time with him over the years, and is a strong rider. And the thing about these Rwandans, they know everyone. They know exactly where the food is. They know exactly what they can eat. If they get stuck, they can ring their mates and kind of get home easy. So there's a bit less pressure. So yeah. I always like watching the Rwandans, and they're really strong riders. They just don't have that many opportunities to gain experience. But they've done a number of race around Rwandas now, so they are slowly gaining experience. So in theory, their results should be kind of getting better.
In theory, at least. They're facing the next two we picked out. You said they're racing as a pair, the Yates brothers, Jesse and Liam.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. which makes sense. It was interesting to see because Liam has started many races, but has scratched quite a few. So seeing him race with Jessie would be good, especially given Jessie and Alex McCormack were first pair across Andes in November. So clearly fit enough. It's just whether they can get to the finish. So that'll be interesting to see how they go as a pair. And then the final rider we picked out is Lucas Clement. He's a Czech rider. He's been fifth at both Silk Road Mountain Race and Hellenic, which are excellent results. He was 12th at Atlas Mountain. So if anything, the race around Rwanda will be a little bit smoother for him. Do you have to get off and walk and race around Rwanda, Josh?
Not really, no. There's a few sketchy bridges that you don't want to hit in the wet. But yeah, Lucas is really strong. Actually, when he was fifth at Silk Road, I was riding with him on that final day. And it was him and Seb Brewer, and we were all really close. Then him and Seb just disappeared. I think they finished, I think they were joint fifth. They finished together, and then I just got dropped like a stone. So yeah, he's definitely really strong. So yeah, I think he'll be probably one of the favourites for that race.
And that's it for the upcoming races in the next few weeks, actually. We move on to
That's it for facts.
Yeah. Now to the gossip. This next bit's actually slightly more factual, as we've taken a lot of it from her Instagram posts, but it's about Lael going for the round the world record, which is the Guinness World Records record, and that then means that she'll be doing it fully supported. And she's going after Mark Beaumont's record from 2017, and fully supported in the round the world is a motorhome with a couple of members of a support team, including Mark had like a performance director and a bike mechanic, and I think the performance director was also trained as a masseuse. So
like weighing his plaster and stuff.
Yeah, and they really take the weight off. It simply leaves the rider to push the pedals. It really differentiates it from a self-supported effort, and there's very little.
The interesting thing is though that Guinness doesn't differentiate. So Mark doing it the way he did it with all that support is in the eyes of kind of Guinness, same as Mike Hall doing it by himself, fully supported and camping every night, or Lael doing it last year. So if you want to beat the record, basically it's at the level now. Mark's brought the bar up so high that you do actually have to do it with full works, like the full team. So yeah, looks like Lael's going for it.
Lael did do it a couple of years ago, and this time, as she's going for the overall record, she's calling it Lael Rides Around the World Faster. And she starts on June the 7th, and she'll be going for Mark's record, which is, well, she'll have to go under 78.5 days. She's released her route, and this was quite interesting. It is different to Mark's, largely, I think, because in 2017, the world was a lot more open, especially through Russia and China. There was a long straight line, which was logistically a lot easier for him and the team. But Lael can't ride that, so her route has more shorter legs, which will be interesting from a logistics perspective, especially given you have a team and a motorhome as your support vehicle. But she'll start in Chicago, as she did for her record from 2024. She'll ride out to Halifax on the east coast of Canada, fly into Lisbon, ride out to Istanbul, but she takes a fairly northern route, so she'll go via Germany, and then fly into Mangistau in Kazakhstan, which is on the Caspian Sea, across to Almaty, which is quite a short leg along, well, it's the Kazakh desert, really. And then she'll fly into Bangkok to Singapore for another short leg. And then the next leg is not so short. That's Perth to Brisbane, so it's west to east of Australia. And then she'll fly to Wellington to Auckland, and then fly into Anchorage and ride back to Chicago, which for under 78.5 days, she'll have to ride 240 miles, which is about 385 kilometres a day. She's currently planning on riding 16 hours a day at a 50-mile-an-hour average, 2 hours stop time, 6 hours sleep, which all sounds very straightforward.
Easy.
Yeah. What could go wrong?
But if anyone could do it, I think, Lael can. But it's all the other things as well. It's much of a logistics record as everything else. But she put an interesting post up on her Instagram, so I'll just read it out because it's quite cool. So she says, in 2024, I rode on a mountainous route with a fully loaded bike averaging 15 miles an hour, 24k an hour, for 12 hours every day. Even at this pace, I just need to ride 4 more hours a day to accomplish the goal. I passed through all of the major cities and stopped to talk with fans and friends. This will be much more efficient with a support crew taking care of food, mechanicals, lodgings and logistics on a flatter route through the countryside. So it sounds like she's confident.
Yes.
She sounds like she knows she can do it. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see, really interesting, because I think a lot of people thought that Mark's record was, he hit it out of the park and no one was going to ever beat it. But records are there to be broken, aren't they? So, yeah, it'd be really, really good to see Lael take it. I mean, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Definitely. And speaking of Mark Beaumont, I just saw on Instagram that he's had a bit of contact with Sarah Ruggins, which is a name that will be familiar to people who listened to the podcast in summer last year. She broke the record for, we can't remember if she started in Land's End, John O'Groats, and rode back to Land's End, or I think she started in John O'Groats.
Yeah.
I think she started John O'Groats, Land's End, and back to John O'Groats because she flipped the route last minute to avoid
Whatever the
some of
acronym. Yeah, whatever the acronym is.
Yeah, it's like
Not
job.
the other one. That's
yeah.
it. My brain doesn't work very well with acronyms, I'm afraid. So, but yeah, I mean, she's doing something big. If you follow Sarah, you know, she's training hard, and there's obviously a big project. It'd be interesting to see if it is around the world. I think, and this is just me, this is no way factual. I wonder if there's something first, like a bigger ride, because Land's End, John O'Groats it's not easy at all, but it's logistically simpler because you're only in one country. I wonder if there's going to be like a North Cape Tarifa or Europe North to South or something like that first as a stepping stone onto the world record. But that's pure speculation. She's obviously strong enough to do it. But again, it's logistics and finances as well.
Exactly. Yeah, raising enough money to do a couple of days up and down the UK and back is one thing. But I heard of some speculation from someone that reckons it was about $500,000 for Mark Beaumont to do his around the world record, including everything, I think, training and the actual record itself.
But Mark is always very good at getting the big corporate sponsors on board. Like, it was never really cycling companies. It was it Arteris or something? Some big investment company, or I don't know what they do. It's like, no idea. Some financial clever people with lots of money who can drop $500,000 and not think about it. But I think that's what it takes. And I think, Sarah got a lot of PR for her record.
Mm.
And I think you almost need to do that to be able to do the record, like Lael. Everyone knows Lael. So she's got big backers, her backers are primarily bike industry, but, specialized, they're a pretty big company, Rafa. So yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, imagine we had Lael and Sarah going for it at the same time.
That would be thrilling. Cool. That would be brilliant. Yes.
Yeah. And then there's always the Lachlan Morton question, because there's rumours, you hear people say, oh, he's going to try and do it. And then you hear him say, oh, I don't want to do it. But then you speak to someone else and they're like, well, I've heard he wants to do it. Lachlan is someone who could do that and could probably, he's got the profile and probably the backers to be able to generate that money. And remember, he set the record around Australia, which to all intents and purposes did look like it could be a dry run, a dress rehearsal for that kind of supported record. So there's a couple of names in the hat, I guess. And we're just spreading rumours at the moment, but imagine if all three of them had a crack at it this summer. Wouldn't that be good? Talking of rumours, another little thing I've heard is pro teams in bikepacking. So far, everyone's kind of, I guess, a few riders are kind of what you would call, inverted commas, full-time. So for some people, that means having a podcast, talking nonsense. Others, working within the bike industry or having a side job. But it sounds like Canyon are having their own factory gravel team and are including a couple of bikepackers in that who will basically be, full-time paid as a pro rider just to pedal their bikes, which will be interesting. So I wonder if that's going to start setting a precedence. I'm sure there'll be a press release probably in the next couple of weeks. And a couple of names that I'm sure we'll recognise, but I'm not going to spill those beans. It's not my place to do that. But it's a good bit of gossip, isn't it? So I wonder if other brands are going to start paying attention. I mean, Robin's kind of on a factory deal from Scott.
Yeah.
Lael's pretty much factory with Specialized. So do these big companies now need their bikepackers as part of the, is bikepacking legitimized as a thing you need to sponsor, which would be, I don't know. It's worth thinking about, and more of a long-term thing, isn't it? But it shows it's bikepacking is getting traction and growing.
Yeah, definitely. Until recently, those who've managed to make a living out of it have been very entrepreneurial, and they've very much had to kind of sell themselves as a brand. You come to mind when I think of that, Josh and James Hayden, but people have had to do that for themselves. Whereas with factory teams or more established methods, a rider could get by merely more on just their results and don't have to prospect their own sponsors as much, which isn't in the skill set of every good rider.
Exactly. I think it favours more, it puts it more in like the athlete kind of terms. For example, like a pro road cyclist on a World Tour team or a top mountain bike cross country team or whatever it might be. Basically, you've got world-class numbers and all you do is wake up and train, and then someone takes care of everything. There's central, or on the whole, there's more centralised sponsors and someone paying for everything, and you just get paid a salary, so it's just like a job. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But I still think it is a privateer's world for now, but it might change.
Yeah. The next part of the podcast is just looking ahead at a few of the things we've seen and heard about the start lists of the biggest races of the year. We'll talk a bit about some of Nelson's races, TCR and the Tour Divide. Alan has published the start list for the Highland Trail 550 this year. So this isn't rumours. This is what's on the website, and it rarely
Actual
changes.
facts.
We'll be quick about this, though. A couple of names which will be familiar to those who listened to the earlier bit of the podcast, which I'm sure everybody was, about the Tortiwaipinamu. Two of the fastest men on the Highland Trail start list are Joe Nation and Justinas. So hopefully they'll have a good hit out over the weekend in Tortiwaipinamu, and then a rematch in the Highlands in May. And they'll both be rookies, which will be interesting. It'll be a bit more of a even playing field, as Tortiwaipinamu, Joe certainly has an advantage, a locals advantage and a veterans advantage. The women's start list is arguably more competitive. We have Alice Lemkis lining up. She's a former winner from 2023.
She got the FKT still?
No, she never did. Lee Craigie has had it from 2018, and no one's ever gone near, actually. Lee's, I think, the only woman under 28.
Okay.
No, but I think Lee's worried that Alice will.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that was a chat on Tour de France of the year. I couldn't quite remember. But nonetheless, Alice is super, super strong. So I'm sure that's what she'll be gunning for.
And Kerry McPhee will be lining up as well. So that'll be her third start at the Highland Trail. And that's very much home ground for her. So hopefully after 2 years of learnings, we'll see her go well. I remember a couple of years ago, a friend saying that this was before Kerry had raced, that Kerry would be the best chance of Lee Craigie's record being broken. But Lee's record is one of the stickiest records ever, really.
It depends on conditions as well, though, in the Highlands, doesn't it? You've got to kind of get good weather.
But they've had great weather for a couple of years in the past few years, and still no one's got close. So I think it's...
Just got a pedal out of them.
And Molly Weaver will be lining up. She started the Highland Trail a couple of years ago, but didn't finish it. But she has done the perimeter of the UK as a supported record. And so she's spent a bit more time and experience on the bike.
She's strong enough for it, for sure. It's just piecing it all together, I think, really. And experience counts, and she's got some experience on the route now, so I'm sure she can do a good ride.
And the final woman was Hannah Simon, who we've actually had on the podcast last year.
We have.
So that's really exciting. Not that we have any skin in the game, but...
But yeah, come on, Hannah, you can do this. But she's really experienced again at Atlas, and she did Hellenic last year as well, and Silk Road Mountain Race, and Tour Divide, and, well, yeah, she's done a lot of the big races. So, it'd be nice to see her over in the UK and taking on the Highland Trail 550.
We're at risk of turning these into race previews months ahead of time, but we'll run through a couple of the other names that we've seen for a few of the races.
Everyone would have forgotten by that point, or they're not even got this far in the podcast, so it's kind of all right. We can repeat ourselves a little bit, pad this one out. On to Tour Divide. Now, this is kind of more rumour than anything. Basically, this is from chatting to people and seeing people post their aims on Instagram. There's a couple of names that do pop out, which make it it sounds like it's going to be quite an exciting race. So Megan Hakkinen, she's previously won the women's race at Tour Divide. Sounds like she's going back this year. So it'd be great to see. It'd be great to see how she gets on, having done the mountain races, and see if she's kind of developed as a rider as well. Because it's I'm not going to say it's easier than the mountain races, but it's more kind of, the Tour Divide's a bit more kind of more information about it, and more kind of guaranteed with resupplies and things like that. So yeah, be really interesting to see if she can go faster, which I'm pretty sure she can. But there's also some big names on the men's side of things. Angus Young, we've already mentioned him. That'd be his first attempt at the Tour Divide, but he's done a lot of long records. So he did the Eastern Divide last year, which was like 4,000 or 5,000 miles. He's done the European Divide Trail. So the distance won't be a problem for him, but it'd be really interesting to see how he goes. An exciting name, Alex McCormack, world class, really strong rider. We've chatted about it, and he's not interested in anything less than Robin's record. You don't quite have it's not quite how it works on the Tour Divide, but he's definitely strong enough to do so if he gets a good run at it. But the Tour Divide decides whether it's a fast record, as we all know from the Portaloo saga a couple of years back. Mud can happen and can slow things down. But yeah, Alex is a world-class rider, and he's definitely strong enough to take that record if it all went right for him. And I think the plan is for him to do the Triple Crown as well. So the Colorado Trail Race and also Arizona at the end of the year. So that'd be good. That would be a good watch. Another rider, Laurens ten Dam, he finished third a couple of years back behind the year Justinus won, I think it was, behind Justinus and Ulrich. So yeah, be good to see him back. Again, he's got that experience under his belt. I mean, he's a world-class rider. He's got all those years as a pro cyclist. So it'd be interesting to see. I'm sure he won't be going back to go slower. Just he's a racer at heart. So I think Laurens will do a really good race. And then also an interesting name, Victor Bozzoni. We discussed him already in the Atlas preview, winner of the transcontinental race last year. Up until now, he has primarily been focusing on road events, but he's switched to kind of more of an off-road calendar this year. So he's got Atlas in a couple of weeks. And it sounds like Tour Divide is going to be a big goal off the back of Unbound XL a few weeks beforehand as well. So yeah, there's four male riders there who look like they're going to basically smash the crap out of each other. And Megan's super strong as well. I do wonder if Megan get top 10 overall. So yeah, and there'll be more riders too. That's just us piecing things together. So there's no official start list. So I'm sure we can get more gossip on that as the year develops.
Silk Road is the other main off-road event of the year, and we've got a couple of names there. Justinus is top of the list, which will be brilliant. I think he's going really
Pure
well
gossip,
at the moment.
By the way, this is not factual. There's no printed start list.
We've said it. It's got to be there. When was the last time that Justinus raced Silk Road? Do you remember?
It was, when was it? 24, I think. The year Joe Nation won? Or was I there? Can't remember. Maybe it's 2023.
Yeah, we were there at the same time, weren't we?
Was it 2023? I can't remember. He gave himself pneumonia. I think Sofian won. So yeah, so 2023. I think he made some dubious sleeping decisions, like on the Chinese border at 2,500 meters when it was like -4 when he was about 20k from a checkpoint. But there we go. I think Justinus is learning. He's learning, and it's missing from his Palmeiras, and he's won pretty much everything else. So you can pretty much tell what Justinus is going to aim for by what he hasn't won, apart from TCR because he doesn't like that.
Cynthia will of course be there. We've mentioned she'll be at all 4 of Nelson's races. Angus is tentatively going, so we'll see how he goes at Tortio Waipinamu, and that might have some determine on his decision.
I think it's more Tour Divide for him. He said he wants to do the Triple Crown Challenge. I know Angus fairly well. The Triple Crown Challenge in the US, but also he doesn't want to miss out on Silk Road and the Taurus Mountain Race. So it'll be one or the other. So that'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see. But he's obviously done that a couple of times, once or twice, but he's always had quite a bit of bad luck. So I think he just wants a bit of a clean run at it.
The next name is podcast favourite. That's you, Josh. You'll be a Silk Road again this year.
Hopefully, yeah. I might even service all the bearings on my bike this time and see how it goes.
Hopefully there's another length and hyper bike for you to make up some time on as well.
Oh, God. I don't make up time on hyper bikes, unfortunately.
The next name is Alex Kopp, who you know well and have spent a bit of time touring around Spain and Morocco this winter.
Yeah, he was 7th last year. I think it was 7th, top 10 anyway, but he was taking it not easy. You can't take the Silk Road easy, but he was sleeping kind of 6 hours or so a night. So obviously that loses quite a bit of time. But I think he did it in a bit more of an enjoyable kind of way. But I think he wants to go back. Well, I know he wants to go back and really push for a result. So yeah, Alex is a strong rider. He's won the Hellenic Mountain Race. He's done Atlas. I think he was 5th at Atlas. So yeah, he could really get a good race result there. And then we've got a couple of returning riders as well. Max Rice, he's been out 3 times, I think. So again, he's pretty experienced and knows what he's doing. So, you can't rule out experience in an event like that. Manu Catrus, actually, I'm riding with him in the Grand Guanche next week. So I'll scope out the competition there. But again, he's got some unfinished business because it was 2023 when we were there, wasn't it? And he crashed and broke a rib and had to scratch.
Yeah.
But interestingly with Manu, you may have seen Finding Nessie, the film of him and his partner Katrien and their 2 boys riding around the Highland Trail Race or Highland Trail route on cargo bikes. And their plan is to do the same in Kyrgyzstan this year, pre-race. So that'd be really cool. That'd be a cool film at the end of that. It's whether that would be good training or just tiring him out before the event starts. And talking tired before the event starts. The final name on this list, this is a rumour, but I've heard fairly reliably that Sofian Sahili, 3 times winner, is also planning to ride, and he also wants to ride there. And so a couple of riders have done it. Carlotta did it last year. Marion de Saint-Exupéry has done it twice. So basically riding from Europe to Kyrgyzstan. We know Sofian's fairly familiar with that journey. Sounds like he's going to stop short of the Russian border this year. But yeah, he's planning to ride out, which would be cool. And it'd be interesting to see if he can still win it. You can never rule out Sofian.
No. Back in Europe, we have the Transcontinental next year, and you've put a few names down here.
Yeah, it's kind of the obvious ones, really. I mean, there's not the start list is always quite late for the TCR. But Robin Gimpele, he told me basically he wants to go back and win it. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'm pretty sure he'll go back. He's got a bit of a love affair with the TCR. That was his first ultra race, and the way he kind of got into it, and obviously the big win, which has led to him basically being full-time rider. So it sounds like Robin wants to go back. Christoph Strasser, again, a name synonymous with the event now, and ultracycling over the years. And Jana Kessenheimer, who's 2 times women's winner now. Sounds like she's going back to try and make it 3.
It's surprising to see so many former winners keep going back. I find with TCR, it's one of the races that does have quite a big repeat offender rate. And I don't know if you've said this, that a win there can sometimes feel like you need to prove it again. A first win
I've
can
not managed
sometimes
that.
but people really value that second win as much more than the first.
Yeah, exactly. And also the routes changed quite significantly the last couple of years. So there's that interesting new challenge as well. Obviously starting in Norway this year, going north to south for the first time. So I think it's keeping it fresh a little bit, but still with that, the challenge in the Balkans and that heartland of the TCR at the end. So yeah, that'd be good to watch, and we'll get the official start list much nearer the time, and I'm sure there'll be more names. And it's one of those events that kind of the strength in depth is so strong now because it's got such a big reputation and such a lot of coverage on it that it's always strong there. And new riders pop out of the woodwork. Nicolas Châtelet, I think I saw as well. He wasn't on our list originally, but he was leading early on last year and kind of faded away a bit. But I'm sure he'll want to go back and make up for some mistakes, or utilize some learnings from this year or last year.
The Taurus mountain race, which was Nelson's new race, that's his race in Turkey, happening on the 14th of October. They again haven't released a start list, but what they have done is released a couple of posts on their Instagram, so we have a good idea of the women who are hoping to line up. It being an inaugural event.
Well.
It is. It should hopefully be Marai's first event back post surgery, her second surgery, of course. So as a former first woman at Atlas Mountain, she should go well there, but it won't be easy. She'll be racing against people like Cynthia, both of whom are arguably equally matched at an unknown race like Taurus.
Yeah, the only thing with Cynthia at this point is she's going for all 4 races, so there's not that long between Silk Road and the Taurus, so fatigue is going to play a big part as well. Not trying to take anything away from Cynthia, but it's something to factor in when you get to that end of the year, because it is quite late. It's October, isn't it? And there's a lot of riding and racing to be doing before that point. Even someone like, for example, Justinus, with his name on our list, and we've talked about him doing the Silk Road race and everything else he does beforehand, because Justinus races a lot. It's still a big ask to recover. So I think we could see a few kind of interesting things at Taurus, especially with a new race as well, a first edition.
Yeah, hopefully Justinus has learned some things from doing the Triple Crown Challenge a couple of years ago, because the turnaround from those can be quite tight.
And to be fair, it didn't slow him down, did it? Maybe that was a bad example. But certainly, yeah, that's something to consider, that Cynthia, for one, is doing all 4. So and there'll be other riders as well within the start list who'll be trying to do that. So I think it would probably take the edge off the kind of form by that point.
Yeah. No one's going to be fresh for it, except maybe a Southern Hemisphere rider.
Yeah, so if you want an easy win, just don't race all year and turn up. Unfortunately, there's no such thing as that.
Megan Hakkinen is another rider who'll be lining up at Taurus. She competed Nelson's full Nelson last year, so or the Atlas Mountain, Hellenic, and Silk Road. So she'll be looking to go well here. It's attracted a lot of riders to Taurus. I think there's a certain pull to Nelson's inaugural races. We certainly saw that at Atlas and Hellenic. Another woman who will be lining up at Taurus is Natalie Bayon. She'll be familiar to those who followed Silk Road in 2023. She was joint first woman with Peggy or Marquetta. So she's done well at Nelson type races, which should bode well for Taurus. Another first woman at Silk Road is Hannah Simon. She's also got finishes at things like Tour de Vai, Colorado Trail, Arizona Trail, Atlas Mountain, and she would probably be one of my favorites, I think, for something like Taurus, given I think she's most comfortable in the unknown. A lot of the others have done well they've had a lot of good results, but I think this being an inaugural race is quite key.
And I think it's going to be a lot tougher than people expect as well.
Yeah, you were saying that Nelson has compared it to Silk Road in difficulty, which surprised me.
Yeah, a lot of altitude as well. Some quite high sections. I think the highest pass is like 3,000 meters, and all the kind of weather, things that come with that variability. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And another woman who's very familiar with that is Leanne Bentley as well. She's done a lot at the Silk Road race, a couple of podiums, I think. So yeah, it's looking pretty stacked. And we've not even seen the start list yet. That's just stuff we've made up. So it's going to be exciting at the end of the year. That's October, so you've got to wait quite a long time until that point. But yeah, even in January, there's going to be a lot of really good dog watching this year, isn't there, Becky?
Definitely, yeah. And you made a really good point about the women's fields before the record. Given some races have struggled to hit if they've set themselves a quota, but the level of competition has just grown and grown over the past few years.
Strength in depth, I think. I think it's across the board, but certainly in the women's field, there's more. I guess there's more women that are obviously really strong, but are just getting more experience, which is often the deciding factor in these races now. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch.
And that's it for this podcast. Thank you for listening to the first podcast of the year. I felt a bit rusty, Josh. I
know.
Much
well, we'll try and get a guest next time to take the pressure off a little bit, maybe. But yeah, we'll be back towards the end of February. By that point, we will have we'll know who would have won all these races we've been discussing, or the upcoming events. And Atlas would have just finished. So yeah, we'll look forward to that. And I'm sure we'll have some more news then. So in the meantime, Becky, thank you very much as always.
Thank you, Josh.
And yeah, thanks everyone for listening. And we'll see you all in the next episode.